Hello everyone, and welcome to this interview. It's going to be the first interview in a series of interviews on mindful coaching. And today I have the privilege of talking to Alan Seale, who is the director of the Center for Transformational Presence. And I had the joy, and really it was a great joy, of attending a workshop that Alan did in Denmark just a few months ago. And that's been kind of a transformational, I would say, experience to me. It really was. And I certainly need to learn more of the work you do, Alan. And the series of interviews on mindful coaching will be with different, very interesting coaches from around the world who somehow is affected by this sort of mindfulness revolution that's going on. And later on we will hear if Alan too believes that he is affected by exactly that. Okay, so I'm really excited to hear about anything you have to tell me about your work, really. But the first thing I want to ask you is about the core insights in transformational presence coaching. What are the core insights?
That's an interesting way of saying it. First of all, thanks, Camilla. It's great to be here with you and to see you on the screen at least, and to connect again and have this chance to talk. Core insights, that's a really interesting question. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone has ever asked me that in directly that way.
Okay.
So let me just sort of turn that around first to say that transformational presence is really all about creating the optimal conditions in which transformation can occur. It's a presence being all about how do you show up to your life and to your work. What is the energy that people experience in your presence? What is the energy that you radiate? What do people feel when you walk into the room? And then transformation, well, that's a word that's being used everywhere now. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, then we have the risk of losing our connection to the core essence of what that word means. The word comes from the Latin root transforma, which means change across form. Transformation is something that happens at the core, at the fundamental levels of being, and then ripples out from there. And so in quantum physics terms, you might say that transformation is a shift in vibrational frequency and pattern. It's getting down to the essence. So all of our work in transformational presence is about cutting to the essence, getting to the core of whatever's going on, and then working from the core out. So when you drop the pebble in the water, then there's the ripples out effect. In a sense, we're just cutting to the essence and starting our work there instead of starting from the outside and trying to work our way in. Transformation is not something that you can make happen. That's called manipulation. Mm-hmm. But rather, it's about creating the best possible conditions. And I think of it like tending a garden. If you're a gardener, you know that when you plant a seed, there is nothing you can do to make that seed grow. But there are many things you can do to encourage that seed to grow. Mm-hmm. So you can plant it in the best possible soil, and you plant it in a spot where it's going to get just the right amount of light, and then you make sure it has enough water, and you fertilize the soil, you pull the weeds to give it space to grow and to breathe. You do everything you can to create the best possible conditions for that seed to grow. And that's what transformational presence is about. It's about creating the best possible conditions for the greatest potential to unfold. Whatever it is that's, our sort of leading question is what wants to happen here. Not what do I want or what do you want, but in the bigger picture, in service of something bigger than you or me. There's something that wants to happen. What is that, and how do we work in service of that? So, in a nutshell, that's transformational presence. Our work is all about helping people expand their awareness, expand their capacities for awareness and understanding, for perception, for how they think, for how they engage in the world, for compassion, for just understanding on many, many levels. It's as we expand those capacities of how people think, then what they think will start to change.
And you said what they think, not how they think.
Exactly. What I'm saying is that our job is not to tell people what to think. Our job is to give them new tools, new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And as their capacities for thinking, for working in complexity, for awareness and understanding and perception, as those capacities expand, they will start to make different choices. They will start to, what they think will change as how they think expands.
And you said that your work is to create the best possible circumstances to make this happen. And what would be making the best possible circumstances? What kind of work is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so let's make a distinction between circumstances and conditions. Because actually I said our work is about creating the best possible conditions. The circumstance is whatever it is.
Okay.
And so the conditions are creating a culture of discovery.
Yeah.
Creating a space where people can feel safe and comfortable to not have the answers. Creating a space where we can let life and the circumstances speak to us on their own terms. We say in this work, a problem is not something to be solved, it's a message to be listened to. So how do we create the best possible conditions and offer the greatest or the most powerful tools for people to be able to listen to that message, to recognize that whatever their circumstance is actually just trying to show them something. And it's probably actually trying to show them something more that's wanting to happen, a next step. We treat problems and circumstances as if we have to push against them and make something happen or to fix them.
Yeah.
If instead we turn that around and realize whatever's going on, it's our next co-creative partner, and it has a message for us.
Yeah.
So our first job of creating the best conditions is helping people to learn how to listen to their circumstance.
To listen to their circumstance. So would that be the same as saying to listen to their lives as they really are? Or is that something else?
Well, that would be one way. I mean, if it's something in your personal life, then it certainly is listening in to what is it that's wanting to unfold in my life next, what is the next, and again, it's what wants to happen, not what do I want. There's that
exactly.
There's great potential here. So it certainly is on a personal level, yes, but then we can look at this also on a societal level, on a government level, on an education level, in all these different layers of society,
and on a soul level,
and on a soul level. And in fact, it's listening on a soul level to all those levels.
Yeah.
Because if we're coming from that soul level, again, that's getting to the essence. That's getting to the core. So we're listening to the soul of society. We're listening to the soul of a company.
Of humanity.
We're listening to the soul of a country. The soul of one country is going to be different energy than the soul of another country, or from one company and another company. And so it's all these different layers. And this is part of what I mean by that our work is about expanding capacities for awareness, capacities to recognize that there are so many layers to whatever is happening, and begin to listen on all those different layers, to pay attention on all those different layers. And it's where mindfulness comes in and is so important, because at the most basic level, mindfulness just being about being so fully present to what is right here, right now.
Yeah. And at your workshop, I had the experience myself of feeling that I was able to listen in a way that I didn't know before. Like mostly I thought of it or understood it as listening to my heart, like my heart really knew things that felt so important. And it was like the message that I got from my heart was like it came very quick, and it was surprising, and it felt true, and like, yes, this is it at the same time. So this kind of knowing, because I saw in your book, Create a World That Works, that you also use these words like the heart knows. The knowing comes from the heart. So what kind of knowing is this? How can we understand that?
Well, there's an intelligence in the heart. We actually work with 3 different intelligences within our systems. So there's the head, the intellect. And the intellect is very good at organizing information and at sort of making a plan, in a sense. It's good at the execution of things, in a way.
Yeah.
And then there's the belly, which is your emotional intelligence, and it's where your deep-seated subconscious beliefs are. And it's how you feel right now in this moment. The head is not in this present moment. The head is usually in the past or the future. The belly is very much in this present moment. It's just, this is what I'm feeling right here, right now.
Yeah, I can tell.
So whatever is there.
Yeah.
And then in the heart, it's breaking through to your own greater wisdom, but also tapping into a more universal wisdom, to the bigger truth that's present here. And the Institute of Heart Math has done this amazing research on the intelligence of the heart and the intuitive mind, the intuitive thinking process. And in their scientific research, they discovered that the electromagnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times greater than the electromagnetic field of the brain, of the intellect.
5,000 times?
5,000 times greater.
Wow.
And so what that says to me is that the heart, which is the center of the intuitive mind, of that intuitive intelligence, the heart has access to a field of information that is 5,000 times greater than the field of information that we can access only through the intellect. And so when we talk about the heart knows, it's really about coming back to these, and especially the head and the heart, if we're talking about those, that there's something that each one of them has as its strength. The head is really good at organizing information, but it's not very good at gathering information. The heart, on the other hand, is really good at expanding out and gathering new information, but it's not very good at organizing that information.
No.
So they need each other in that way. The heart knows. The heart can lead us and guide us, and the head is there to then support the heart, to organize that information, to make the plan, to create the steps forward. The heart can sense this is our next step, but beyond that, it really needs that organizing ability of the head to help it take that step. It's the same, as we were together, we did some big work with the soul and ego partnership.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about here, too, in a sense, that the heart being the soul and the head being the ego. And recognizing that they are both incredibly important to us. There's so many teachings about getting rid of the ego. To me, if we're making a part of ourselves bad, how can that serve us? And so it's recognizing the ego plays an important role here. It's just what's important is finding that balance and the dance between the soul and the ego. And the soul remaining is the captain of the ship, but the ego is the incredible crew. And the captain can't do very well with her ship if she doesn't have a really good crew.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. So you're touching upon your understanding of the human being that you're being with as a coach, or your understanding of the coachee. Could you say a bit more about that? What is your view on the human being? What is the coachee? What is the best thing for the coachee to get from going to coaching? from being coached?
There's so many layers to that, but again, it comes back to expanding capacities of awareness and understanding. And so when the coachee, when the client expands how they think, how they perceive, how they listen, how they engage their intuitive mind, then they are getting a whole new set of insights into their own situation, whatever it is that they're coming to coaching about, whether that is a challenge that they're coming with, or for me, many people that work with me come because they've got a dream, they have a vision, and it's all about bringing that vision to life. And of course, as we work to bring that vision to life, up come their fears, their doubts, their resistance, the way things that get in the way. And so that's what we're doing our work with. Yeah. But it's interesting when you say understanding the human being, and what strikes me right away is it's not just the human being, it's the greater being. It's recognizing the human being as one aspect of that much larger, greater being. Yeah. It's coming back again to the soul, to the essence, to that greater being, whether that's of humanity, whether that's of an organization, whether that's of a family, whether that is of a relationship between two people, that all of those different levels have a soul, if you will. I understand soul as in the ancient scholarly languages, all of which came before the religions connected to those languages. The words for soul and spirit translate to mean breath. Okay. And so if we look at the soul of humanity as simply the breath of life in humanity, the breath of life within us as individuals, the soul of a company is the breath of life within that company, or within a country, or within a society, or within a relationship. It's our work here is about helping people get in touch with that breath of life inside of themselves in its purest form. And how does that want to be expressed? And what is the gift that is here to bring to this world?
So, when you are doing coaching,
yes,
what is the most important thing that you bring to that coaching?
My own capacity for listening and awareness and sensing and intuiting on many, many levels, and helping the client develop their capacities for that. Because I don't have the answers to whatever they need, but they do, or they have access to that, and together we can access that. And it's, I really think of coaching in its highest form as consciousness having a dialogue with itself. When we can move into that place, as we work together over time, coach and client, those roles start to disappear. And we are just in this space together with this flow, this dialogue, this exploration, consciousness having a dialogue with itself. And we're in a discovery process.
That's a beautiful phrase. Consciousness having a dialogue with itself.
It's
wow.
I'm sure you've experienced that at some point in your life. When you're sitting with somebody and the energy is flowing, things are just moving, and things are being said that you didn't know that you knew, or the other person didn't know that they knew. I mean, it's just because all this is flowing through us. And so we are just vessels for that greater consciousness to speak through us in that moment. And that's truly when we come into this discovery process, and that's truly when we can be in touch with that bigger question, what wants to happen, and find that, oh yeah, here's what wants to happen. It's so much bigger than just me. It's so much bigger than you or us together.
Yeah, and that's what I really loved about being at your workshop. Having this experience, really feeling that, wow, this is so much bigger than me, and it's not about my ego pushing forward. It's something else happening. I just loved that so much.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was wondering, would you tell me about what kind of habits or rituals that you have yourself to nourish this capacity of listening?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting that question's been coming up a lot lately.
Okay.
It's just here it is again. So, I guess I would say the most fundamental piece of that is a morning meditation practice, and for me it is a sitting practice. But people always ask me, what do you recommend is the best form of meditation, and I say whatever works.
Yeah.
It's whatever works for you. There's not just one size fits all. But for me, it is sometime within the first 3 hours of the day, I will have a period of time in the silence, in the stillness, for myself. And I stress that when I say within the first 3 hours of the day, because it's not this absolute ritual that, I get out of bed, I do this, I do this, I do this, I meditate, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. It's just, I get up, I have my coffee and sit and read the New York Times with my dogs on either side of me, and it's usually before the sun has come up because they're very early risers.
Okay.
And that's kind of how the day starts, and then I slowly find my way down to my office and then enter into my meditation space and time. So that's the foundation. That's the way the day begins. And for me, that practice is it's about being so incredibly present. It's not about escaping. It's not about drifting away. It's about being so present right here, right now. And it's the anchor for the day. It's sort of like establishing my connection, my communication with something bigger than me for the day. And so that's the first thing I would say in terms of my own practice. The second thing that I think covers a lot of ground actually has to do with intention. That I am very intentional about everything that I do.
Okay.
So that I don't very often do something just without thinking about what I'm doing there. I mean, it's not to say that my life is not spontaneous. There's a lot of spontaneity in my life, but even within that, there's this intention of the way I choose to live my life, and out of that intention comes this spark of spontaneity quite often.
Like you're not a lot on autopilot, is that what?
Not on autopilot, but of recognizing that, like my intention for being so connected to something much bigger than myself, which means that I might realize at a certain point in the afternoon, it's time to be outside for a walk now.
Yeah.
Just stop what you're doing and go walk, or whatever that is. So there are it's being very intentional about everything. As an example of that too, we moved into this house 4 years ago, and we made the very conscious choice that there would be nothing in this house that we didn't specifically choose to be here. So that we've created this space that really nurtures and sustains and supports us in so many ways, and it's a beautiful space, and it's an intentional space, and it's a space that I also create when I'm teaching. That I spend time to create that space, that energetic space, before I even walk into the room and we begin. So, intention in your life, being really clear about who you are, why you're here, and why you're doing what you're doing, is a really important piece.
Yeah.
And maybe just the third thing that I would say then about that is making sure that there are things in my life and in your life, as I'm encouraging others for this, making sure that there are things in your life that feed your soul. We live in a very fast-paced world, and it's very easy to get lost in all of that. And even if you perhaps have your morning practice or evening practice or whatever your daily time in the silence is, your daily reflective practice, that by itself is not enough. It's recognizing what are the things in your life that feed your soul, the people that you just need to be with from time to time, the places that you need to be from time to time. It's incredibly important to me to be outdoors in the nature at least for some time every day. I'm not a big, huge outdoors person. That's not it. It's just I need to be in the green. I need to be in the fresh air. I need to feel the sun.
Yeah, me too.
To be in that.
Yeah.
And it's for me. It's also about music. because music
sure.
was my career before this, and so to bathe in that space of whether it's going to hear the Boston Symphony or whether it's I go to a church in the center of Boston on Sundays when I'm not traveling, because it's Trinity Church, which is right in the center of Boston, a very historic church. But I go there because the music there is unlike any other place I've ever been on a Sunday morning. It's just incredible.
Okay.
And it feeds my soul. It's not about the words in the service. It's about the music and the energy of that and this incredibly beautiful space that just feeds my soul. So what's important is recognizing for yourself, what is it that feeds your soul? And make sure that you have that in your life.
And when you're specifying that it's not about the words but about the music, would that be because you're thinking as this spirituality that is in your work, that it's a spirituality without religion, or?
Well, I would just say it's much bigger than any one religion. And for me, spirituality is my own spirituality is a very universal thing, and I have drawn from so many belief systems in my own work and in my experience and what makes sense to me. So I was raised in a Christian tradition. I can't really say that I fit so much in that tradition anymore. Yet, at the same time, I have to acknowledge that there's something about that childhood experience that is in you. There's something about the being in that space that still feeds me on a certain level. And it's not about content. It's about the energy and the intention. I can go to another church and not have anything like that same experience because there's not intention, there's not clarity, there's not the same energy of what's happening there. There's not the same... I think part of what makes it so special in that particular church is not only the quality of what happens there in terms of the artistic quality of what happens there, but the intention of everything that happens in that space, including the intention of the design of the space.
I can totally relate to that. And so I wasn't even baptized, and I was raised totally without religion, and I can so much relate to that. It's not about the words they say. That I kind of don't connect too much to the words, but to the energy, very much.
Down underneath that is a mystical tradition. And that's part of when I've studied all the world religions, and you drop down underneath to the mystical traditions underneath them all, and you get into the indigenous cultures and their belief and their mystical tradition. It's all the same. It comes back to the 7 Hermetic principles from the ancient mystery schools. Every belief system in the world has taken those 7 principles and interpreted them in one way or another to form the basis of their religions. So when you drop down underneath the surface, you get back to that core of all of life is energy in motion. When you can understand everything is energy in motion, your whole relationship to life shifts in an enormous way.
I forgot to say anything because I was going into the feeling of that.
That's a good thing.
It feels so good. Okay, so now that you're talking about everything is energy, you're also talking about the worldview in transformational presence coaching. So I would like to ask you, so I have this claim that there's a mindfulness revolution going on, and I really feel like that all the thoughts and the practices from mindfulness are to some extent being integrated in coaching. Not always very consciously, but maybe just like, okay, we'll start with a breathing exercise, and sometimes in a more profound way. So this mindfulness revolution that I'm talking about, how do you relate to that? Does it have anything to do with your work?
Well, it's completely what my work is rooted in. I feel like that there's a lot happening around mindfulness now in the world from a horizontal perspective, from a talk perspective. And so we can stand in the. We talk about the horizontal being the doing and the vertical as the being.
Yeah.
And so we, in our culture, we mostly stand in the horizontal and talk about the vertical.
Yeah.
But we don't just dive into the vertical.
So there's a lot of chatter of mindfulness. That's what you're saying?
Exactly. And so, to me, the actual practice of mindfulness, to the deep dive into the vertical, is still very much on the periphery.
Yeah.
It's not at all come into the mainstream, and yet it will. It's on its way. And I don't know of any other leadership and coaching program that goes quite to the depth and breadth that we do at the Center for Transformational Presence. And there may be other ones out there, but that I just haven't found yet. But I've looked quite a lot. However, within a few years, there will be others because it's coming on in to the consciousness. So I'm very clear that this work, it doesn't belong to me. It just came through me in this form, and it's going to come through others in other forms, and it's on its way on into the consciousness. And so, is there a mindfulness revolution? I think there's a mindfulness conversation happening now.
Okay.
And that's beginning to awaken some awareness, but it's to me it's very much coming from the outside in, and at some point when we can turn that around in more in the mass consciousness, that it starts from the inside out. That's when we truly then have a revolution, I think.
Do you have any feeling of what is needed to make that happen?
It's people's own experience.
So, more serious mindfulness practice to get that experience, or where should we get that experience from?
It's as people begin to respond to their own longing.
Respond to their own longing.
To me, it's there's a wonderful TED talk of Ricardo Semler for his work in business and how he's running his company Semco in Argentina. He's been doing this for 30 years, way ahead of everybody else in how he's running his company, and it's fantastic. And at the end of the TED talk, somebody says, "So how come you're not, out there selling this to lots of other companies and getting everybody to come on board?" And he says, "We just do what we do, and when people are ready, they find us." And I thought, there it is. When people are ready, they find it. So I'm not actually interested in convincing anybody of anything. I'm creating a space here. That's what we do at the Center for Transformational Presence. We offer a way of being, an approach to life, and people keep finding us. At a certain point, and there are others like yourself who are doing amazing work, and people find you when they're ready to find you.
Yeah.
To me, when we talk about a world that works, to me that's not a world where everything is perfect. It's a world where we learn to respect one another. It's a world where we can recognize our differences as well as our similarities and respect them as opposed to criticize one another for them. It's a world in which we can recognize, as in different cultures and different individuals, on both levels, we are on different learning curves. And so what you're working on and learning in your life is something different than what I'm working on and learning. One of my teachers years ago said, we all have the same 100 lessons to learn. It's just that we learn them in different orders.
Okay. Like that.
So
yeah.
There is kind of a challenge for us at times, and to recognize that different cultures, different societies, different countries, different parts of the world, we're in different places in the learning curve. And we can't just expect everybody to be in the same place and flatten that out. So a world that works is a world of respect and awareness that, they're just learning a different set of lessons right now than we are. Let them learn that. and invite them to let us learn what we need to learn right now. To be, it's this place of respect and ability to listen to one another, and to listen to hearts and souls, not just words.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the question was that you asked, but
I don't either. I'm quite sure you answered it. Alan, at this point in your professional life, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about how the work, the transformational presence work, just keeps expanding around the world. That's particularly exciting to me because I didn't set out to make that happen. I didn't have this vision that I'm going to work in all these countries and with all these people and all these things. I thought initially I was just creating a 7-month teleclass program. I thought this sounds interesting. Let's do this and see what happens. And now. And
when you say initially, you mean when you shifted from voice coach to this work?
Well, or when I started the Transformational Presence, the Center for Transformational Presence, and developed this particular program, the Transformational Presence work. That was 5.5 years ago that I started this particular program, and as I said, just started it as a 7-month teleclass, and now there are 400, almost 500 graduates from 30 countries, and this year the program is in the United States, Canada, Romania, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Sweden, and now in Denmark we've been as well. So, and I've spoken in a number of other countries. So I've worked in about 15 countries now over the last few years. And I didn't. It's about saying yes to what you're being asked for.
Yeah. So and people really find you.
Well, and so that's what I'm excited about is what is the next door that opens and says, would you come here? And just say yes and go see what happens there. What I'm the most excited about is helping people expand their capacities for awareness. It's all about awakening awareness. And again, as that happens, people start to make different choices and take different actions.
So if I zoom into coaching practice, like being in a coaching session, how do you orientate and choose from moment to moment which way to go, which questions to ask in your own personal experience of being there?
So I start the coaching session simply by saying, where do we start today? And the client always knows. And sometimes they say, I don't really know. I just knew it was important for us to talk today, but I don't really know what we're going to talk about. And usually within 5 minutes, we are deep into something. And we realize, oh yeah, this is what we're supposed to talk about today. How do I know where to go? The client tells you the questions all the time. If you just listen to their words, if you feel the energy, if you just pay attention on 1,000 levels to what's going on, then I don't ever have to think about what's the next question. The next question is just there. The next thing to explore or the next concept to talk about and open awareness, which then leads us into another tool of discovery for the client, so that it's just being in the flow of the session. If as soon as I have any agenda for it, then you've blocked the greater potential that wants to unfold. So I make a distinction when I'm teaching coaches and leaders, a distinction between personal style and technique.
Yeah.
There is a technique to coaching and to this transformational presence coaching. There is completely a technique.
Yeah, that's it.
Because it is so much about paying attention to the energy and responding to that and having skills and tools to be able to do that. And it's also recognizing the role of the coach and the client in the session, that it's the client's agenda, yes, that they brought, and the coach is following the client to know what is the next question or the next place to go. But the coach's job is to bring the structure through which they're going to explore. And the coach's job is to lead the client through that structure. So that creates a safety for the client. Now that's not to say there are none of our tools that are formulas or it's not a method. It is an approach. So it's a framework, it's a structure that we're dancing within all the time and finding the way. I don't know what that's going to be before the session starts. And I don't even know what it's going to be 5 minutes from where we are right now. But yet, at some point, I have a sense early on in the session of, let's go work within this framework today and see what happens. See what we discover.
Yeah.
And let it unfold. It comes back also to intention, of having very clear intention before all of my work is on Skype and on the phone because my clients are all over the world. And so before we get on the session, just for me to pause and hold the intention that something very important will happen for my client today in this session. I have no idea what, I have no idea how, but I'm holding that clear intention that we're going to open a really important door today.
So this is
and
something.
It usually happens.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So this is what you do consciously to bring this capacity for listening into the coaching session.
Yes.
Is there anything else you do during the coaching session to do that, to bring this capacity at play?
It's just all about your presence, how you show up and how you hold the space for the client. And what does that mean to hold the space? Again, that's about intention. It's about emptying out your agenda. And it is holding the highest agenda for the client, often when they can't. And it's sometimes, for me, about holding a bigger agenda even for them than they're able to hold for themselves or that they can even imagine for themselves. Because it's about calling forth that greatest potential.
Yeah.
And holding a space, creating the optimal conditions again, coming back to where we started.
Yeah.
Creating the optimal conditions for something to happen. It's about complete non-judgment, of being able to be totally okay with anything that the client says or brings into the session or experiences or feels or just, it's just all okay. It's all normal. It's just all okay. And when you can be there in that space with them and just let it all be normal, and including letting this working with understanding life as energy and motion. When that is just normal for you, it becomes normal for them. Because that's how the soul lives and works. The soul completely understands that realm. The heart completely understands life as energy and motion. The intellect gets confused about that. But the heart and the soul completely understand. When you just go straight to there, in your own presence, that opens the door for the client to join you there.
So I'm curious about when you say the intention. It's about intention because intention is intention towards something, as I understand it. Like, how do you differentiate between intention and agenda?
It's intention towards the client getting whatever they need. Intention towards creating a space that will support my client in the highest possible way.
Okay. So
I'm just aware of our time.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, I was just going to say that it's time to finish up. So I will tell people where to learn more about your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy that you wanted to do that.
This was great fun. I hope we can do it again. It was just very, very, very fun to do this with you.
Sure.
So, please come and visit our website, transformationalpresence.org. And I look forward to the next time I get to talk to you, Camilla.
Good. Thank you so much, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.